ARM template example and explanation. An example and explanation of an Azure Resource Manager (ARM) template, which is a JSON file that defines the resources and their properties that you want to deploy to Azure. When deploying a VM, the offer is Windows Server and the SKU is 2016 Data Center. When deploying roles, the asterisk at the end is for writing. The resource group blade lets you view the template used for deployment. New AZ deployment allows you to deploy resources and resource groups. New AZ resource group deployment deploys an ARM template to an existing group. Data actions is used to modify who can sign in. Assignable scopes restrict who can be assigned the role, policy, etc. Type contains the service type, service, layer. Logic app, a cloud-based service that allows you to automate workflows and integrations between cloud and on-premises applications. Logic apps can be controlled for scaling with a workflow setting configuration. Azure AD Premium P1 versus P2. Azure Active Directory Premium P1 is a version of Azure AD that includes basic identity protection and access management features, while Azure Active Directory Premium P2 includes advanced identity protection and access management features. Resource lock, a feature in Azure that allows you to lock a specific resource or resource group to prevent deletion or accidental modification. These don't apply to moves. Azure AD Premium P1 versus Basic. Azure Active Directory, AD, Premium P1 is a paid version of Azure AD that provides additional features and functionality over the free version, Azure AD Basic. Some of the features that are available in Premium P1 but not in Basic include Single Sign-On, SSO, for on-premises and cloud-based apps, conditional access, and self-service password reset. Azure Network Watcher, a network monitoring tool in Azure that allows you to diagnose and troubleshoot network-related issues. Azure Functions, a serverless compute service in Azure that allows you to run event-triggered code without having to manage infrastructure. Docker Container, a type of containerization technology that allows you to package and deploy applications as containers. Azure App Service, a fully managed platform for building, deploying, and scaling web apps and mobile apps in the cloud. The development slots are not backed up. You can restore a prod instance to a new slot. Region-specific and cannot be moved across regions. Have to clone, copy. Does not support A records. Web server logging allows access to raw HTTP data including 500 error codes. It's part of application service logs. _backup. Filter file allows you to ignore certain files from backups. Azure App Service Environment, a fully managed and dedicated environment for running Azure App Service apps. Azure App Service Plan, a logical grouping of resources in Azure App Service that defines the scale and capacity of the apps that run in it. Azure Deployment Slots, a feature in Azure App Service that allows you to test new versions of your app in a staging environment before deploying them to production. Service Bus, a messaging service in Azure that allows you to send and receive messages between applications and services. Sessions allow you to guarantee first in, first out. Security Administrator, a user in Azure with the Security Administrator role, who is responsible for managing security-related tasks such as setting up conditional access policies, monitoring security logs, and managing Azure AD identity protection. Service Administrator, a user in Azure with the Service Administrator role, who is responsible for managing the overall health and availability of Azure services and resources. Subnet, a subnetwork in a virtual network in Azure that provides a way to segment the virtual network into smaller, isolated networks. Cost Analysis, a feature in Azure Cost Management that allows you to analyze your Azure spending and usage to identify areas for cost optimization. NAT Rule, a rule in Azure Network Security Group, NSG, that allows you to map an external IP address to an internal IP address for outbound network traffic. It also allows the ability to filter outbound connections in Azure. Route Tables, a feature in Azure Virtual Network that allows you to define custom routing rules for network traffic. Azure Application Gateway, a fully managed, multi-tier, load balancing solution in Azure that provides high availability, security, and scalability for web applications. Azure Bastion, a service in Azure that provides secure and seamless remote desktop protocol, RDP, and secure shell, SSH, access to Azure virtual machines directly from the Azure portal. The subnet name is Azure Bastion Subnet. The address prefix is always A27. URL Path-Based Listener, a feature in Azure Application Gateway that allows you to route incoming traffic based on the URL path of the request. Multi-Site Listener, a feature in Azure Application Gateway that allows you to route incoming traffic to multiple backend servers based on the URL path of the request. SSL Termination, SSL Offloading, a feature in Azure Application Gateway that allows you to terminate SSL, TLS connections at the gateway, freeing the backend servers from the CPU-intensive SSL encryption and decryption process.